church which is proving to be both salt and light in its location, impacting the culture of the community.
Jesus said to his followers, "You are the salt of the earth, you are the light of the world." What did he mean when he said that?
I think that the gospel releases a people with almost two roles in the world. One is to see the lost saved, to bring people into the church, to see God glorified through conversion, people built around the gospel of Jesus. Beyond that, there is also impact that goes further in bringing Christian values to the culture, so that even beyond the church there is godly influence. There is a kind of awareness, almost a fear of the Lord, almost a glow around that brings impact and light where there would otherwise be darkness. And certainly that has been the case, so that over the centuries one can think of something like William Wilberforce, for instance, how he, as a Christian man and very devoted to Jesus, in fact at one time thought he should put down his political world in order to become a preacher. But happily people withstood him on that, because he was such a brilliant parliamentarian and so jealously concerned about slavery, a global issue, international political issue, outside of normal church building, but nevertheless an affront to God. And so he wanted to deal with slavery. Now that was part of the church shedding light into an area of darkness, being salt to stop corruption and the wickedness of the world, so that the church has an impact beyond what it's doing within its own ranks of making disciples, bringing maturity among the saints, gathering to worship. There's also that overflowing ministry that can bring restraint against evil, even if that is not a response to the gospel. There can be restraint. There can also be light shining. And even to do with government, some people have gone into government, which itself is a gift from God to restrain the breakout of evil. I've spoken to some of my African friends, and they say that when government goes, you are in such danger. There's such chaos and fear, and government is a gift of God. Well, if Christians can invade government, they can really be influential to bring light, to bring salt to the culture beyond building a church, making disciples, worshipping Jesus.
What does it mean, salt? I mean, people think salt's what you put on your chips. You know, what does it mean to be the salt of the earth? How does that relate to what you're saying?
I think that we've got to take it, what did it mean when it was written? And in that culture, salt would have been something that preserved against corruption. They didn't have deep freezers, but they could massage salt into things, stopped it just falling apart, becoming gross. And salt has that ability to stop things becoming corrupt. Hence we can find in the Western world at the moment, while the church's influence is being cut back more and more, so we see more and more gross things happening in the world. The world is becoming an uglier place since the church has been less powerful and influential beyond its own walls.
Do you think that if we are fulfilling our duty of being salt and light, that we can expect a kind of utopia to arrive in the here and now? Are we aiming for heaven to come to earth in the immediate?
I think when heaven comes to earth, to take your phrase, often that's a phrase describing revival, when God's presence comes to his church. What overflows from that very often is an advance of church planting, an advance of influence. I don't think we should expect ultimately a global expression of God's purpose. It's still flee from the wrath to come at the end of the message. I understand that Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones, one of the final words that he spoke was, flee from the wrath to come. That is God will judge the earth. The Bible is quite clear about that. There'll come an ultimate judgment. It doesn't say there'll become an ultimate breakthrough that doesn't require judgment. There will be judgment, and we need to see our primary call is to say, look, flee from that, come into the ark of God, come into the place of safety, which is the church, which is salvation. Nevertheless, we can have impact beyond. We shouldn't have an over-realized eschatology, to use the theology, to say, that the whole of the kingdom will happen in this age. No. Jesus will come and usher in the restitution of all things. He will do that at the end.